In the studio today, we have Bobbie Irvin Jr., and he is a
Irvin, yep.
Kentucky author who has a new book out, or is it a new book? Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what your book is about and why you chose to write it?
Okay. Well, man, this happened back in actually 2008. Um, I had I've been contacted by a person that was a forensic social worker, and she was investigating or trying to gather some history on a cousin of mine who was up for a murder charge. He was looking at capital murder, and her job was to go to all the family members, interview them, and try to get some background, some family history on what kind of environment he grew up in, and how did he become
What went wrong?
become this person? Yeah, kind of what caused him to change his ways and turn this kind of life. And so what was supposed to be like a 30-minute interview turned out to be 2 hours, and I end up telling this forensic social worker basically everything, everything from my childhood beginning up until adulthood. And when she was done, she was like, "Man, that's a fascinating story. You need to write a book." Well, I've been told that several times because I've told folks my story, abbreviated parts of it many times, and I even thought to myself, yeah, this is pretty original and pretty fascinating. Maybe I will think about it. But for some specific reason, for some reason, having that interview with her really set it off, because I had never talked to anybody for that long, let alone a stranger, about my upbringing and my life's journey, if you will. So that's how that began.
So what is the major thrust of the book, as far as it's an autobiographical piece, and what does it cover? What points of your life?
Well, it pretty much starts out in my early childhood years, probably preteen years, where I'm in the inner city here in Kansas City, trying to figure out my life. I was doing fairly well, staying out of trouble for the most part, but it seemed like once I got into my late teens, mid-teens, I started going in a different direction. The neighborhood was starting to change. I was starting to get involved in drugs and stealing cars and just all that other crazy stuff. And I saw things going in the wrong direction, and I had to come up with some plan to get out of it. And I decided to go into the Marines, and so that was life changing for me. But just going back a little bit, I had grown up in an environment where my dad was alcoholic. He abused my mom, and I saw a lot of violence there. Once again, looking around in my environment, I figured I need to make some changes, or I'm not gonna make it. I was just, friends that I was growing up with, I'm starting to see that they were starting to be incarcerated, and several were getting killed, and I had to make a drastic change, and I knew if I stayed there in Kansas City, that odds are I wasn't going to make it. So that's why I decided to join the Marine Corps. It's one of the best things I've ever done.
So, and then after the Marine Corps, you came back, and what did you do from there? Or was there something that happened to you in the Marine Corps apart, or, how did that kind of form you?
Well, the only place I really had traveled to was Oklahoma and back. I had a lot of relatives there in Oklahoma, and So I didn't know, anything about what was going on in the outside world. So other than, my little radius of relatives there in the Oklahoma area. And so um, I joined the Marines, not really knowing what to expect. But when I got there, they taught me how important it was to be diligent in what you do. Uh, they showed me discipline that I had never experienced. Um, Once again, the traveling was key. I was able to travel around the world and see different cultures, and that was an eye-opening experience for me. But just being able to travel someplace where you saw uh, people prospering and enjoying life, that was really a big thing with me. Um, One day we were running. We had a 3 mile boot run on the beach, and we knew it was going to be pretty challenging. I'd never done anything like that, but we ran along the beach that morning, and it was amazing because I had never seen the ocean before, and I had these birds were flying around, and the dolphin were jumping out of the water, and the waves were hitting the shore, and I barely remember that 3 mile run because I was so focused on all the beauty and everything that was out there, that it was really a life changing experience for me. And I thought to myself, I said, man, this is what living is all about. The serenity, the peacefulness. I thought I got to have more of this, and that really motivated me to even want to accomplish more in life, let alone get through boot camp, which was one of the toughest things I had ever done. Um, the physical part of it, of course, I had never. You're talking about a kid that I think I went in at like 165 pounds. I was as skinny as could be. I never worked out, didn't know anything about physical training, and spent my last 2 years in high school just smoking weed and drinking beer. And so this was this was a big challenge for me. But in the first week, I really didn't think I was going to make it. I haven't even passed my mind that I was gonna just quit. But then there was a part of me that said, "Hey, listen, you can't go back. There's no going back. You gotta make this happen. You gotta achieve this." So I hung in there, and through all the physical part and the mental part, the challenges that were presented to me during the boot camp, happy to say I made it through. And also, if I might add, being able to travel to these different countries, I was able to interact with a lot of different people. But one thing that stood out with me was a visit that I made to the Philippines, and I thought I grew up poor, and I experienced what it's like to run around with your shoes half blown out, your feet sticking out, days where we didn't have electricity or heat, things like that. Because I grew up in a pretty big family. There was 10 of us altogether, eight kids and then mom and dad. But we had periods of times when we were just, we did without, and depending on a lot of public assistance, with food stamps and welfare and such. But I went to the Philippines, and I saw how the people lived there. With the houses were basically cardboard boxes with the best frame they can get, and dirt floors, open sewers. Some of them didn't have electricity, and I thought to myself, wow, I'm never going to complain ever again about what I lack because of what I saw there in the Philippines, and that once again put a different perspective in life for me. It was a eye-opening experience. So you know, so being able to go away with that experience and understand that even though they were poor, they were still happy and content, you know. And so I said to myself, I'm never going to complain about anything ever again.
Right. Yeah. And so when you got out of the Marines, you came back. Did you go immediately into the police force, or what was that transition like for you? Was that something that you wanted to do straight out, or was there a big pause where you're trying to find something else?
Yeah, you know, I knew that I wanted to get out because I had just started sort of raising a family, and I said to myself, well, I didn't want to raise a family in that environment, in the military uh, environment. So so I decided to get out. Law enforcement was more of an afterthought for me. I was trying to get a job in the actual field that I was trained in, which was the petroleum supply. And so, I was looking at jobs out in, working at the petroleum plants and offshore drills and things like that. Then that never came about, and so I was at the end of my enlistment, I told Mom, I said, listen, I'm not. Things don't happen fast enough out here in California. I need to find some employment. I said, you know anybody in Kansas City is hiring? She said, yeah. She said, the police department's hiring right now. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'll be there in a week. So I packed up my U-Haul and my family and moved to Kansas City. Now, you have to understand, when I left Kansas City there in '85, I had vowed not to come back. I said, there's just too many bad memories there. And yeah, it was just,
Right.
I didn't want to come back. So, so to go back was a big thing. And I didn't know what to expect when I got back. During that time, crack was starting to take over our neighborhoods, and I was hearing reports from my family. When I talked to them, that things were getting really bad, and but I didn't realize how bad until I actually got there. Well, here it is, '89, and then '90 I start the academy, and lo and behold, I get through the training and such, and my very first assignment is the neighborhood that I lived in. So, so you can imagine the challenges there. At that time, a lot of the guys that I was hanging out with prior to going into the military, they were now gang banging and selling drugs and just getting into all kinds of trouble. So,
So when you came back into your neighborhood, do you think that as a police officer, because you knew so many people and everything in your neighborhood, did that change your approach at all, or were you just kind of like at the start trying to be by the book, or what? How did that affect? Do you think it affected your actual policing?
Actually, there's pros and cons to that, because a lot of the calls that I was going to happened to be people that I knew, and so that helped. But once again, that was also a con to that, because people expect you, hey man, you from the hood, so why don't you cut me a break, or can
Right.
you do this, or can you do that, so there was a balancing act there, and I try to treat everyone the same, whether or not your family, friend, or whatever. Just handle the call, handle it, be fair, and be stern at the same time, because you can't let them, you can't just let them run you over, or you never get anything accomplished. So I would just handle the calls the best I can. Once again, being fair, but there's also those ones that you couldn't do anything for them. I mean, you had to arrest them. I mean, I was on foot chases, people that I knew, stopping cars, people that I knew. I was actually being called to my parents' house several times handling disturbances over there. Yeah. So it was, yeah. So, imagine getting a call, you're out patrolling or whatever. And there was a couple of times I was actually on another call and I heard the address, my family's address come out. And I'm like, hey man, I got to go. My dad's over there acting up again. And so I had to hold myself out of my parents' house to handle their mess. So, and, I get calls from police officers saying, hey man, I got your cousin over here. Or I just pulled your dad over. He's, drunk off his butt and can you want to give him a ride home or whatever. But, it was crazy.
So is this what the book focused on mostly, is your police work, or is there other, like, I know that.
No, there's a mix. There's a mix. I'm sorry, I cut you out.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say there was a little excerpt on Amazon, so I went and read it, and the excerpt that's on there is kind of like about your childhood and your dad's behavior and those things, So I was like,
sure.
What, with the way that the book is structured, I haven't read the whole book, so that's why I was curious as to whether most of it is your police work or if it's like your police work.
No, it's a mix of everything. I talk a little bit about my upbringing, my relationship with my dad. I talk a little bit about the police department, and then I go into the better part of the book goes into my opinion, if you will, of what police officers and dealing with prejudice and the social injustices and such of that the country's facing at this time. My mom and dad's passing as well. I dealt with my mom's cancer, and also an incident with my dad when he passed away while we were out rabbit hunting one day. So then I was having a premonition about that for years. I was having it so much, I even brought it up to my wife. I said, listen, I've been having these premonitions that my dad and I are going to be out rabbit hunting, and he's going to collapse, and I'm going to have to do CPR on him, and I'm going to have to get help and throw him in the back of the pickup truck to go get help for him. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened that day.
Well, that kind of brings us around to, I'd like to talk to you about your Native heritage, kind of like how you found out about that, how that got introduced into your life, and maybe if you think that there's been times or incidents where, it's difficult because when you're separate, if you don't live within the ceremonial grounds, like you don't have an understanding of what all, the different
Sure.
are, could you just talk about that a little bit? Like, how did you find out you were a Native American?
Well, my dad talked about it all the time. And we visited Oklahoma quite often, down in Beggs, Oklahoma, and also Okmulgee. We have family in Tulsa and Oklahoma City, but we spent a lot of time in Beggs, Oklahoma. And it wasn't until I actually became an adult, around the time I was getting out of the Marine Corps, and I really started to look at our history. We were having family reunions down there in Oklahoma, but because our family we were considered barbaric, if you will, we didn't get invited to a lot of the family functions because, the family from Kansas City, they were nuts. They were considered nuts, and you couldn't invite them because all they do is go there and they'll drink and get drunk and start a fight, and the people down there in Beggs, they didn't even want to deal with that, and I understood that. And we have a great relationship with them now. Matter of fact, one of the best relationships now than ever. And they told us this. That's why, they didn't want to have us around a lot of the family functions. And I told them, I said, listen, I totally get it, but what I did I started to investigate our family history, and I discovered that the family was on our ancestors were on the Trail of Tears, and so I was able to go into the archives, National Archives, and I actually have actual paperwork of when the rolls were taken and some of the interviews, actual interviews that were taken by the government of some of our ancestors. So I was able to find out a lot of information through the archives. But one thing that I've wished that I would have been able to do or still able to do is actually become more involved in the tribe, because I get newspapers and occasionally, because of where I'm at, I'm not able to travel there as often as I would like to in Oklahoma, but I have gone to the summer festivals that they have every year.
Mm-hmm.
I have been able to go to those, but yet, I do get this feeling when I go there. I'm like, man, I look around and I'm just like, I don't know any of the language, and there's a little bit of feel of disconnect there. But once again, I'm very humbled to be there among them, and so
Well, I think that's pretty common experience too. There's so many citizens that have been moved, through whether their parents or grandparents went to college in California or something, and they ended up out in California.
Right.
There's so much. The citizenry has been spread out so much that it's very difficult. And just from my personal experience, on a side note, like I grew up in Okmulgee, but because my family didn't participate in ceremonial grounds, for instance, like I wasn't exposed to all that stuff. So it's not, like it's not a unheard of experience for sure. But I guess, do you ever feel like a connection to that heritage that's maybe like an unexplained thing? I know we were talking about you had a
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Since I was able to get more information on my family history, my Native American history, I do make it a point to not only learn more about my tribe, but also learn about other tribes, especially down here in this Florida area. This whole state's full of them, full of tribes. And in the state of Georgia, where a lot of our history started, there in Georgia, I've taken the point to learn more about that. Matter of fact, I'm planning on a trip to go visit that site up there in Georgia.
Downfield.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of interesting because your travels have kind of mirrored, it's the reverse Trail of Tears, where you're coming from Oklahoma and then you're going back to Florida. So that's
true.
Really
that's true.
To think of that.
That's true. But I think that's what it's all about. I think that everyone should make it a point to learn their ancestry. And if it's not, in your early ages, at least into adulthood, so you can pass that information on to your kids. I have 2 kids, and it's very important to me that they know where they're from, where their ancestors are from, and I'm doing my part to ensure that history is passed on to my kids, because I want to make sure that their kids also understand their ancestors. So it's very important.
So just to wrap everything up, let's talk about the book. So failure to comply. I just had a question. Is there a message with the failure to comply title? Is there a buried meaning there? Yeah. What is the title of that?
Yeah. Well, it crosses over all kinds of perimeters, because it's failure to comply with what some would consider social norms. Just because you're black, you're supposed to eat a certain food, you're supposed to listen to a certain music, and I talk about that in the book as well. That expand your horizons. Don't Don't be stuck in this bubble where you don't listen, you only listen to a certain type of music, or you only read a certain type of book, or you dress a certain way. uh, don't be afraid to try different foods. Don't I took up scuba diving simply because people like, hey, black people don't swim, so I'm like, you know what, I really want to learn how to do this. So I did. I've learned how to ride a motorcycle, playing the bass. I just took that up 4 years ago because I've been procrastinating for years that I want to learn how to play the bass. And I said, well, since I'm gonna retire here, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna learn how to play the bass. That's what I've been doing. But you know, failure to comply, it crosses everything. You know, trying to well, this is an example. Failure to comply with what the law enforcement is doing right now. We're in this weird place right now where it seems like society is kind of turned against us. We've got really good officers out there, a vast majority of really good officers out there doing a great job, and I worked with a lot of them. But yeah, you've got some bad apples out there, and I work with them as well. I think it's our job as a whole to weed those people out. And I think, with the way, and I don't know how we got this way, but it seemed like there seems so much more negativity towards people of authority, police officers, school teachers, ministers, you name it. It seemed like anyone that can bring some kind of positive influence to a young person. It seems like society has gotten into this position where question authority, which I'm not saying that that's not something we should do. I think it's the way that we're doing it seems to be getting clouded. And if we could just comply with a lot of what's going on here in society, I think we would be better off. I don't know why it seems like it's fashionable to be mean to one another and disrespect one another, and I don't get it. So that's what I mean by failure to comply.
So if
we just need to learn to love one another.
So if somebody wants to pick up the book, where can they do it?
Well, you can go to my website, which is www.failurettocomply.us, or you can go straight to Amazon and you can order it from Amazon.
Okay, great. Is there anything you'd like to add as a wrap up or anything like that?
Well, if I may,
Sure.
I like to just speak to those beautiful people out there in Creek Nation that I love you guys. I think about the Creek Nation all the time. And thank you guys for doing all the wonderful things that you're doing. Both of my kids, I have one now in school that's getting her doctor's degree in criminal justice. She wants to be a professor. She wants to teach. She's in her second year right now. And my son, who's an attorney, a prosecutor in Cook County, in Chicago for the juvenile division, they were able to get their education with the help of the Creek Nation, and I will forever be thankful for that. They have been just able to really pursue a lot of their career goals with the help of the Creek Nation, and the Creek Nation has been able to provide us with free medical and dental and all kinds of other different services. And I just want to thank the nation for that.